first order of business this evening is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Does any council member wish to pull a consent item? Staff members? Interested parties? Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. If I could ask you to pull off for discussion items 3, 4, 5, and 6, please.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll move the remainder of the items on consent.
Second.
Items 1, 2, 7, and 8 have been moved for consent approval. Councilmember Tofinelli, seconded by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor?
I think, did you include 5?
1, 2, 7, and 8. Mr. Caldwell asked for 3, 4,
3,
5,
4.
and 6.
Did you include 5 in yours?
3, 4, 5, and 6.
All right. I thought it was 3, 4, and 6. That's fine.
So again, just for clarity, we're approving 1, 2, 7, and 8 under consent.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstain.
1 abstaining. We are
I
approving
wasn't here
4,
for that stuff.
0, 1.
The minutes are in there.
Mr. Caldwell, item number 3, the resolution 19-4 approving the Cal OES allocation instructions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a bit confused by the memo for item 3. It talks about that the Public Works Department is requesting reimbursement of approximately $44,000, and the next sentence says that the remaining balance is $29,000 plus or minus. How can they be requesting $44,000 when there's only $29,000 left? And goes on to say further on down that the transit staff, this is the last paragraph under discussion, is evaluating eligible expenditures and will develop a recommendation for expending the remaining funds. Well, the way I see it, or maybe my subtraction is in error, when you have a claim or you want to claim $44,000 and there's $29,000 left, you're already claiming more than what's available, and yet that next line down says that they're evaluating recommendations for the expending the remaining funds. There shouldn't be any remaining funds. In fact, there'd be overdrawn the way I see it.
Do we want to take that under advisement and we'll get back?
Are you done on that item?
If you-
Yes. Okay, so for Cal OES, we received 4 years of allocations. Each year was $36,697. The 2 remaining years added up to approximately $74,000. So the County Public Works expended the 44, and now the new CTAs will be working on expending the remaining funds.
Does that clear up your question? The
So-
answer is that there are 2 years currently remaining of unexpended funds or unreimbursed funds totaling about $70,000.
So there's
being
more
allocated.
than $29,000 left,
Correct. It was the sum total of the 44 and the 28.
regardless of what this says.
Well, that's,
There's not more than 29,000. So there was 4 years of allocations. The county completed the first 2 years on bus stop improvements. The remaining 2 years were the bus stop lighting. They claimed 44,000 in invoices, and the remaining 28 will be expended by the CTA. So those 2 years of allocations is 36,697 doubled, and then you've got like 8 years of interest in there, so we had approximately $75,000.
Well, I don't find this real clear then, from my reading it. It doesn't
In the
exactly.
future, I'll show all the original allocation amounts, what's programmed and what's expended in the future.
Okay, and on that same item, Mr. Chairman, if you go back to page 80, where there's an invoice that's, I assume PV is photovoltaic, stop, and it says Sigel, which I assume they really mean signal, for an amount of a total of almost 29,000 there. And yet those purchases, those items were purchased from Beaverton, Oregon. And if you look at the next page, page 81, those are, if I'm reading the description correctly, those are posts. Typically the 1 3/4 square posts that you typically put in. And those are being purchased from Cleveland, Ohio. We can't buy these items out of California or perhaps Calaveras County? I don't understand that. Why are we, especially posts, these are pretty common. These are like signposts. Seems to me Public Works ought to be looking for local sources to buy these items as opposed to going to Ohio or Oregon to buy them.
Gary, if I can clarify a little bit.
If you could what?
Clarify a little bit for you,
Okay.
and not specifically to these items. These items were purchased by the county when county had transit. Now transit is now out of the county's hands. It's being dealt with here at the COG board. So going forward, we'll be able to look at these items as they come to the COG and find out what's going on. I'm sure the COG people that are involved in purchasing agents here are going to be looking for local people.
You should not have to look over their shoulder.
Well, I'm not looking over the shoulder. I have very much confidence in these people here. And this was county purchases. If we're trying to clarify and cut the ties and go forward from the county and paying off their invoices they are submitting to us for expenses that they paid for these bus stops, so we can go forward as a clear.
But you could also tell them, we'd like to see local vendors whenever possible. I mean, you're doling out the money. They're encumbering the money with outfits out of state, Oregon and Ohio. Seems kind of silly to me to
I
buy
don't
it.
know the reason for it. I don't know, but I can certainly find out if you're that. You wanna know. I see Bonnie's name's on this, so I can certainly ask her why she went out.
I know why, but I don't want to say it publicly, but. Okay, with respect to,
I do see Calaveras lumber here though, in the next item.
I beg your pardon?
I see the next invoice down says Calaveras lumber, so.
Yeah, that was refreshing to see a purchase from Calaveras County.
You'd like to move to item number 4 now?
I'd like to know if the council knows, since you're providing the money for these bus shelters, well, you're the pass-through agency, I should say. What's the average cost? Do you know if what the average cost of a shelter is, of these shelters that were constructed?
Gary, I'd like to stay on task here. This is the bus stop lighting project.
What?
You asked for item number 3, which is the bus stop lighting project. I'd like to stay on task with that specifically right now. Is there any other questions you have on the bus stop lighting project?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you're saying that
Are you
I
addressing?
can't ask about bus shelters because we're talking about bus lighting?
I'm just trying to stay on task here. You've asked for 4 items to be pulled, and this one specifically was for bus stop lighting. Do you have any other concerns about the reimbursement for the bus stop lighting project?
Well, maybe not tonight, but maybe you can ask that Public Works tell you approximately how much you're giving them to buy these shelters, just out of curiosity, if nothing else.
You had a question on item number 4, the PTMS
Why don't
CIA.
we finish 3, and I'll move 3 if he's done. Or any other questions and comments? I think we got to take them individually now, because they were pulled individually.
All right.
So is there need to ask for any other public comments
Why
on?
don't I do that?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
thanks.
what I'm asking you.
Is
That
there
was
any-
the question I had on item 4.
Well, item number 3.
No, the, item 4 was the question about shelters.
Okay, what has been asked by my council is that we address each item and then pass it individually. If there's any other comment on item number 3,
No, sir.
all right.
So moved.
Move for by.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Unities, seconded by Councilmember Tofinelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 3 is passed. Item number 4, Mr. Caldwell.
Yeah, and I am prohibited from discussing shelters under item 4, so I guess we move to item 5.
Okay, then,
Number 4 is about bus shelters.
And item 5, if you
Okay.
look on page 161, it's a table there, and I really appreciate this table because it gives you an idea of progress on the OWP items. And of course, and I do this every time this chart comes out, or a similar chart, point out that there are certain items where there has, now this is, if you
Chair?
look, it's a
Chair,
complete,
excuse me just a moment. Point of order. Can we go back to item 4 and complete item 4 in its entirety before we move to item 5, please?
sure.
I would move item 4.
Item 4 has been moved,
I would second.
seconded by Councilmember Tofinelli. All those approve in item number 4
Aye.
Aye.
is approved 5-0. Gary, thank you. Let's proceed with number 5.
okay. If you'll notice, the chart covers the entire fiscal year 17-18. And you'll also notice that in the left-hand column, it says complete, or percent of work completed. And I'm looking at, because I always look for low completion rates. And you've got 6 of them out of 21 that are 0. And I've said it before about giving these recipients money and not seeing any progress. So I won't beat a dead horse on that. Now,
Is there any other comment you have on item number 5?
beyond what I just said?
Yes.
No, sir?
Okay.
I would move number 5.
Item number 5 has been moved by Councilmember Unities. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Tofinelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Item number 6, Mr. Caldwell.
And I know you haven't voted on this yet, but on page 163, it talks about the Valley Springs Advisory Committee. And twice on that sheet, it mentions project team, but it doesn't define the project team. I don't know who makes up the project team. And when I say who, I mean names. I mean the suggested advisory committee nominees here are all named. Who are the project team members? It says project team up in the first paragraph under the bullets, and it says project team under the table you see there. Who are they?
Is that something you'd like to answer now? Okay.
Yeah, I can clarify. We use the term project team meaning technical staff team, so that is myself, the executive director of the COG, this is a county project, county staff, so public works staff,
Who is that?
planning staff. Well, it really varies depending on the subject matter at the time, but it can be the public works director, a deputy director, staff at public works are involved throughout these processes. The planning director, his staff are involved throughout these planning processes. And then we have our consultant team that we approved a contract award for in June. And that's GHD, and their sub-consultant is Design Workshop.
Okay, let me
And they
just
have a number of technical staff as well that are involved.
just recap what I didn't get it all, but you're part of the project team. The public works director is on the project team and the planning director. Who are the other members?
our consultant team. So GHD,
GHC?
GHD,
Oh,
as in
GHD.
dog. And design workshop,
Design Workshop, is that a consultant?
correct, yeah.
Okay, and in the list in that table, my name is there, and it says retired civil engineer, community at large, as a category. And you turn the page to 164, and it says Gary Caldwell, other. So am I other, or am I community at large?
Yeah, I think
If I
that
get
was,
appointed.
yeah, we can revise that, so if the council approves this minute order, we'll revise it to say, community at large. So that's a typo,
Instead of other, that should be community at large?
correct, yeah.
Unless
Thank
you
you.
want to be another.
I'm usually referred to as an other, but luckily I don't take offense. Okay, and that's the end
You're okay
of
with
my comments on those consent items I asked you to pull, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the minute order appointing the members to the advisory committee for the Valley Springs Town Center Connectivity Plan?
Well, I don't know. There seems to be a cantankerous kind of guy on there, but I'll move this item.
Moved by Councilmember.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Munides. Is there any other public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. I'm glad to see we've made it through consent. Item number 9, public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes per person and shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Item number 10, the report out of closed session. The council held a closed session on August 1st pursuant to government code. Action was direction to the chair and vice chair to negotiate with the executive director. And that is the report out of closed session. Item number 11 is a minute order approving an amendment to the employment agreement between the Calaveras Council of Governments and the executive director as a result of negotiations. This is after our first year of employment of having Amber Collins as our new executive director. We sat down with Ms. Collins and discussed with her the council's review of her performance over the last year, the tasks we've seen accomplished, the additional duties we saw as a team here as a board with the transit and how it was handled by our staff, the staff's ability to manage and handle and successfully manage and handle the transition of transit over to the COG oversight with the Calaveras Transit Board. So I wanted to again compliment Amber publicly that the full board unanimously has been very supportive and pleased with the performance of our executive director, and I'm very pleased to say that publicly. As a result of the negotiations, it was recommended that a 5% increase to her base salary and an additional five additional days of vacation would become effective for her effective July 1st, 2018. This is within our budget, and we are looking to have this made as a motion. Do I have any council comment?
Do the 5 days have to be in a row?
It was
Effective
Only on leap years.
effective immediately.
Well, yeah, leave your.
Okay.
I would move the motion.
Okay, is there any public comment to this item? Seeing none, I have a motion by Councilmember Munides to approve the amendment.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Good job, Amber.
502.
12 is a minute order approving the award of a professional service agreement with Design Workshop for the Angels Camp North Main State Route 49 and Capello Road pedestrian connection. Ms. Collins.
Right, thank you, Chair. This project is funded through Caltrans Transportation Planning Grant through SB 1 or Senate Bill 1, and it was awarded to the COG as the applicant and the city as the project lead. This is a planning process that's really focused on the northern area of Angels Camp, what we're terming North Main Street, so north of the 449 intersection, all the way down to the end of town where Capello Road is, where the apartments and the park are. And really the main purpose of this is to enhance connectivity and mobility options along that section of the highway. There's really, it's mostly unimproved along that section, so there's opportunity there to go through a community-driven planning process to really plan for future infrastructure improvements along that roadway and connect that community that's there on Capello Road with the rest of the services in Angels Camp. And so it's really to develop a plan for improvements that's data-driven, to develop grant applications to get funding for infrastructure improvements. So the COG released a request for proposals for consultant services on June 13th, and we received 3 proposals. Based on the review of the technical criteria in the RFP, the review panel has recommended Design Workshop, who is the top-ranked proposal, and they are specialize in landscape architecture, planning, and urban design, and really do a great job with public outreach. We've used Design Workshop before. They've done a lot of work in the City of Angels, so they really do know the community very well there. They've done a lot of planning for them, so it'll be an easy transition, and they'll be able to hit the ground running on this project. They're subbing with GHD, who is the firm that's leading the Valley Springs project. They're really focused in traffic engineering, so they'll provide kind of that side of the expertise for grant applications and design work. So if the council has any questions, be happy to answer them.
Any council comments or questions? Do we have any public comments or questions on item number 12? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Reedides,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Silva.
Calavera.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. 2 absent. Item number 13, Caltrans report.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Gregoria Ponson with Caltrans District 10, Office of Rural Planning. I was given an item earlier with regards to Highway 4 and Tombell Road. I've already submitted that to our PIO, so we'll be looking at information and gathering that shortly. And I can send it back to, okay, I can absolutely do that and CC you, Ms. Amber, on that item. I really don't have very much. As you know, the department, or District 10 rather, is looking to become more transparent and looking for ways to better communicate. So we've recently implemented a streamlined communication in terms of identifying a project manager with county emphasis. And the new person, her name is Mimi Hui. I'll be providing that information. All this means is that they're a point of contact as a project manager. This in no way shifts project managers with existing assignments under SHOP or STIP or any of the specific project level appointees as project managers. Mimi will serve as a general POC to filter information so that we can capture the thoughts, comments, and concerns of Calaveras as they arrive to our office. Other than that, I really don't have anything. Do you have any questions for me?
Council.
I do. I'm getting a number of complaints. I just had one today. And I know Amber and Matt Boyer, our interim public works director, had met with the executive officer at Caltrans, the District 10, on moving
deputy
the
director.
speed limit signs back to where they were on Highway 49 here in San Andreas. It's causing a lot of problems on what they did, especially at Toyanza Road and Mountain Ranch Road, and even further down at School Street in the mornings where the kids and parents are trying to get into the school. And at 40 miles an hour, there's been already about 3 accidents since they've moved the signs. And is my understanding that they were going to be moved back, and the one south up here, right, that's down by the restaurant, was going to be moved on the other side of Toyanza Road. And then there was going to be some, Matt was discussing with them to have up by the airport some reduced speed ahead warning signs to relieve some of the problems we're having with the speed of people going through there.
Well,
So if we can get that expedited, I would truly be, a lot of people in my district live here in San Andreas and even work here in San Andreas would be truly happy if you could expedite that.
We'll definitely look into that with both the deputy and the director for District 10. I know there have been ongoing conversations in regards to that, and I believe that was a result of a speed study.
I'm aware, but and one of the things was I was never told of a speed study going on, and COG was never informed of a speed study going on through direct email, and I think that was part of the problem, is that there was some communication breakdowns there, and we were working on addressing those. So, but if you could go back and at least ask them to expedite moving those signs back, I would truly appreciate it, really would.
I'll
Because
definitely take
it
that
could be saving
information.
people's lives, even kids trying to pull into school down there. We just had an accident yesterday here where a 13-year-old lost her life. It was further down Freecoat City Road between Angels and San Andreas, but she was 13 years old. She lost her life. So, okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for me?
I do. Okay. As part of the council, I'll head up and then I'll allow the public to address their comments in a moment. One of the previous Caltrans folks that was here made note of the fact that the rumble strips on the roads that are on the fog line work very well when there's a shoulder, and the bicyclists who use that same highway can go to the right of the fog line and right of those rumble strips. But in many areas along our roads up here in the rural area, there's no shoulder. And unfortunately, when they put in the rumble strips on the fog line where there was no shoulder, it actually impeded and forced the bicyclists to be on the street or the highway side of that. I've noticed that you've repaved Highway 49 from San Andreas to Jackson, and it now currently has no fog or rumble strips along the fog line. And I'm hopeful that you could put the bug in their ear that the rumble strip along the center line and the double yellow makes perfect sense. But that is a road that I know bicyclists actually do use, even though it's a very narrow road. Bicycling down the McKinley River Canyon and going back up to Jackson, I know a number of cyclists who do that. And it would be much safer not to put those rumble strips on the fog line. I didn't know if that was a new conversation the engineers were having along that section and other sections like roads like that.
We are having that conversation. We are taking a look at that, not just in Calaveras,
Right.
but in the other mountain counties as well, to facilitate bike and ped, actually, since folks do like to get around other than in their cars. So I'll definitely take this back and initiate a conversation with the project manager for that area, as well as superintendent for maintenance, to see what we're doing or not doing.
Okay.
And I'd like to follow up with either you or Amber in regards to that for additional information.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note on that as well. Caltrans actually has been really good at reaching back out now when you guys are planning additional rumble strips, and actually accommodating the cyclists in areas where the shoulder widths are narrow. So it is a direct result of that outreach with the bicycle community in our communities, that they are adjusting their approach to that. So.
All right. And I have two public members in the audience who also raised their hands. Ms. Topol?
Topol-Copperopolis. Our office is located in the old CCWD building between the Sam's gas station and the San Andreas Apartments. Getting out of there is a nightmare. And Gary, you brought this subject up to her this is August, at the August meeting. So for you to come back now and say, I'll look into it, it's like, to me, it should have been looked into already, because it is a very dangerous situation. Thank you.
Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a very good point about the rumble strips on the fog stripe. Last month's minutes have, under the Caltrans report, have Ms. Ponce talking about a list of projects. It says, update on various projects. And I'm sorry, I guess when she was giving that report, I was unable to hear about the one at State Route 26 and Vista del Lago. It says safety study. Could we get an elaboration of what that means in more detail than just safety study?
I see she's writing her notes down right now.
I appreciate the comments with regards to the San Andreas apartment. When we do our technical studies and our safety studies, they're not concluded within 30 days. It takes about 90 to 120 because we need to go out and we need to do some data gathering, some ground truthing, if you will. But we are certainly looking into that. In terms of Highway 26 and Vista del Lago, I think there was a request for some lighting, some signal lighting on the approach, and that was actually completed there. The lighting is actually already out there. Safety study was conducted, and it was concluded that lighting would be placed out there, I believe.
Yeah, I don't mean to be rude or,
No.
but it had to do with a fatal accident that was south of the intersection. And there's a little row of homes there that are part of La Contenta, and we wanted a left-hand turn lane in there because the road is wide enough, but when they striped out the highway, they did not provide, after they did the improvements at 12 Vista del Lago and 26, they did not put a left-hand turn lane in there. So consequently, somebody lost their life or a rear end, trying to turn in there, a rear end collision. And so the safety thing was trying to determine whether it's feasible to put a left-hand turn lane in there at the width of the road, or would the road have to be widened or something to relieve what's happening there, because there are a number of residents where people have to turn in there. And as you know, when somebody is driving down the highway headed that way south and that light changes to yellow, people tend to speed up, and it's just a short distance. I think that's what happened, and they got rear-ended because somebody put their brakes on to turn left into that little area there. There's like a frontage road that goes there, and there was a fatal accident there. So I think that's what the safety issue was to be determined on.
Oh, that was okay. I have a safety study that specifically looked at the intersection itself, but I can certainly follow up with that to see where that has landed.
They may have considered that part of the intersection. I think it's not that far enough. It's far enough, it's close enough, that it might be considered part of that intersection, because it's not that far away. And it's just the possibility that at the time they did the improvements that they should have gone a little bit wider, a little further down, and put a left-hand turn lane. Although the roadway is very wide at that point. It starts going down, and it's within the realm of when it starts going back down after the intersection is widened. I don't know if you traveled 26 up here when you came.
I did. I went right through that intersection and I saw the lighting. I know the frontage road, which I believe is not part of Caltrans, but I'll definitely pull the study to see what the extent was, if they just confined it to the intersection itself, or they look to include that left-hand turn.
You know, that is an easement onto, it's part of La Contenta subdivision. It is an easement onto to the highway. However, the fact that there was immediately after the improvements done to the intersection a fatal collision there, is something I think the Caltrans need to really look at. And I think that was the intent when it was brought up. Because when you drive home, if you're going back down 26, you'll see how close that left-hand turn is from that intersection and how wide the road is. So I don't know if it's a matter of just restriping it to get a turn lane in there or what needs to be done. But
So you're looking at reconsideration for restriping, among other things, okay.
thank you.
Mhm. Any other
Any
comments?
further comment for Our Lady from Caltrans? Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our next item of business is the county report, but I do not see a county member here to give a report. I can only make note that we have item 14A, which is the capital improvement program for the board of directors provided by the council staff. Thank you. Similarly, we have a city report, but I don't see anyone from the city either. So again, I'll note that item 15A is a capital improvement program summary of project funding provided by council staff. Thank you again, council. Item number 16 is a transit report. Do we have someone that is addressing the transit report?
Oh, well, we do have staff here that can address the transit report. So if the council has any questions on the transit report, I think Melissa kind of covered the CalOS funding that we have remaining, and we were unaware, staff was unaware that funding, there was going to be funding remaining in that project, so we do need to regroup on a strategy and recommendation for the full board, the CTA board, on use of those remaining funds. So we'll bring that back to the board.
Any further questions on the transit report? Okay. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment. I read the report from Amber, and I'm really impressed with all of the activity. I don't know how you and your staff can work on all these projects that she's enumerated here with the few people you have on your staff. I'm impressed.
It's a testimony to our confidence in our staff as well.
I'm not normally impressed.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 17, council reports. Do we have any council reports? Mr. Tofinelli.
I have nothing to report at this time.
I will stay quiet then as well. Staff reports. Ms. Collins, number 18.
You're going to go on vacation, aren't you?
Yes, this is my notice, I'm on vacation. Starting now. So. As usual, item 18A is my staff report, updating you on the various projects and status of those projects. I have in here funding updates. Currently, I've been working with some consultant staff and Supervisor Mills on additional outreach with the U.S. Department of Transportation on the BUILD grant that was submitted. It's a federal grant that we submitted for $18 million for completing the wagon trail, the western phase of the wagon trail project. So it's a very important project for our region. So we're kind of working on a strategy to try to advocate further for that project and try to get it just a little boost to promote, with the USDOT additional funding. So I appreciate Supervisor Mills' support in that effort.
For clarification, this western segment is independent, separate from the central segment that we've already got program funding for $26 million?
No, the 26, and I don't have that in front of me, so I don't want to quote that amount. But no, that's all for the western segment. What we programmed in the STIP and what Caltrans has contributed is all for the western segment.
Okay.
So the western segment is approximately $32 million right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's phase one.
Between Bonanza Mine Road and Appaloosa. I'm happy to answer any questions on the staff report provided.
Well, I'm certain that we would like to keep that particular project on track and on time for construction beginning in 2020, 21. And just not delay it any further than it's been delayed to this point. It's been out there for a lot of years. And it is listed as the most dangerous section of road in Calaveras County on a state highway. So anything that the state can do to help push that thing along, I think would be much appreciated. If you've ever driven that road or responded to accidents on that road, you'd know. So the other thing is that for the staff to continue to push that left turn pocket at Poker Flat and Dutchess. That's one of those projects that goes back to 1995. So that's something for our public works people to deliver on the project. But I think that any pressure that we can bring to bear from our side to let them know the importance of that project. Again, a singularly most dangerous spot in the county, according to the last COG report. So we just need those things that are what we call mission critical. We need to be sure that everybody understands that we're going to pay attention and we're going to put our input into getting it done as well. Thank you again for the complete report, Amber.
Any further questions for Ms. Collins? All right, well, that brings us to the adjournment of the COG meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the COG will be October 3rd at 5:30. We'll now call to order the regular meeting for the Calaveras Transit Agency. Our first item on the Calaveras Transit Agency is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Do we have any council members wishing to pull a Calaveras Transit agenda item for consent? Seeing none, do we have any public members? Do we have a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 3 under the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Tofinelli, seconded by Councilmember Munides. All those in favor?
Aye.
And one extension. Okay, 4, 0, 1, 2 absent. Our next item is public comment. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per person and also to items that are within the subject matter's jurisdiction of the council and not on the posted agenda. Do we have public comment for the Calaveras Transit Agency this evening? Okay. Seeing none. Our fifth item is approving the advertising policy for Calaveras Transit Agency vehicles. Ms. Collins.
All right, thank you. This item has been brought to the CTA board the last 2 meetings regarding advertising policy on the buses. And at the last CTA board meeting, we approved a contract with Helen Forker of Forker Advertising, who's here this evening if the council has any questions. Thank you for coming. So this evening, we're just bringing to you the advertising policy that we'd like you to adopt so we can move forward with selling advertising space on the CTA vehicles. The policy is just really the criteria for the advertising, which is pretty standard language that a lot of transit agencies throughout the state utilize. And then we've also attached for you the recommended rates and ad spacing to be offered on the transit vehicles. So if the board has any questions of myself or Helen, I'd be happy to answer them.
We had thought about or discussed at some point, even if it was privately, colors of the buses themselves. Would that impact these areas?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I did kind of mention it real brief in my staff report, but we did award a contract also to Transit Marketing, who we're going through a branding effort right now, and that will come back to the board. So we are asking for some flexibility in the spacing to be able to accommodate the new brand and wrap, but we have worked with Helen and her team on kind of a compromise between, okay, you know, how can we create a space that would accommodate a good logo and wrap and potentially a base color so that the transit vehicles are identifiable while also providing space for advertising and the ability to generate, sufficient revenue throughout the year. So we're trying to strike that balance, but we're still working through the branding process, and Helen's working with us on flexing some of the advertising space to accommodate that. If that answered your question, that was very long-winded.
I think the advertising agreement kind of gives samples of what the expectation is, and I think the compromise is still showing that Calaveras Transit would be highlighted on the side of the bus in a larger fashion than just above the top of the window. I like the fact that it's below the window too. Thank you for that flexibility or helping us with our branding and getting this off the ground. Is there any public comment? This is a minute order to adopt the policy for advertising Calaveras Transit vehicles. Do we have a motion to adopt this policy?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Tofinelli, seconded by Councilmember Munides. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0 with 2 abstain. And again, Helen, thank you for coming. The Calaveras Transit Agency Monthly Performance Report.
You're not going to stick around for the rest of it?
This is the monthly summary report. There's no action requested on this item. This will be provided every single month throughout the year, and you'll be able to compare the months as we have done the last 3 months of last year. Staff is working on the annual report from last year to pull that together, but we're still working with county staff on them closing their books from last year. But we are looking to bring a more comprehensive summary report of 17-18 so that the board can kind of see where the transit agency has taken transit from and to be able to compare it throughout the year.
So part of that report's going to have us with a last year, this year kind of comparison, month over month.
Correct, yeah, the summary, the quarterly, we plan on having, I believe, quarterly reports, and those will show comparative based on, the same quarter of the previous years. But this monthly reports just provide you information every month so you can kind of keep up to date.
I know it's a revision to the spreadsheet, but it would be possible to get this just on a rolling basis so it always shows 12 months of data rather than just fiscal year? Would that be all right?
Well, at least 3 months back.
Or 3 months back?
At least 3 months back. Maybe not the whole year because it'd be kind of, but at least 3 months back so we can see.
Okay.
Are we close or is there
Yeah,
iteration?
like here, we don't know what June or
Or maybe we're looking like,
August or July. Well, this is July, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to add to your workload, but it would help us a little. All right. Any further questions on the monthly performance report? Mr. Munides?
Have there been any discussions about doing a mobile app for transit?
Yes, there have been discussions, and we're actually working with our operations contractor who has staff on board at their corporate office who has that capability to convert our website to a mobile app friendly kind of app. So I don't know, if, Cynthia, if you have any additional information, but the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, yes. Where we are right now is we did a run on Saturday with an iPhone, and it was just in the vehicle, and all it did was tag all the various places, similar to what Geotab is going to do. And once he has this base, then he can then convert it into a different app that now can be user-friendly for everyone. Mostly iPhones, but he'll work on an Android version as well. But currently, that's where we are. He finalized the one point, which is just getting all the places set, all the bus stops set, and now he can put that into a different platform. So I'm hoping soon. In fact, I'll probably touch base with him tomorrow to sort of see where we are with the next step. But I think he's thinking about putting them in all the buses and going through all the routes so he has all the information, similar to Geotab. So
I was thinking more along the lines of the customer having the app and being able to get the schedule, put
It
their name
will.
in for the pickups.
Yes. So this is just the first phase. He has to get all the bus stops, so it'll actually get to a place where they can get online, they can look at they can possibly plan a trip. We're hoping that'll be at the end, but plan a trip, look at all the times, the schedules and whatnot, and then see where's my bus? What's the ETA? Where are they? Have they left Big Trees Market yet? Because I'm getting picked up in Avery. That kind of stuff.
So it's real time.
So real time, yeah.
So it looks something like an Uber screen. They'd be looking at the bus movement literally on the screen.
Yeah. basically
Similar
like
to
limbs.
that, yeah, yeah, is my understanding. If not, it'll at least give them a time and say they're at this bus stop and their ETA is this time, kind of thing.
And then the new platforms allow you to build for multiple, for both the iOS and Android at the same time, so you don't have to port it, but.
Right, that's, yeah, I'm sure he's doing that. We talked about it, but we didn't talk too much about Android. But he does know that we want an Android piece, because not everybody has iPhones, obviously, so.
Well, the other thing is the major service provider up here is Verizon. I mean, AT&T has a presence, but Verizon's what's working up on Highway 4
Right.
Yeah, but Verizon doesn't work rather,
out of Moke Hill. You have to have AT&T in Moke Hill.
or in person.
Well, there's no AT&T from Murphy's until you get to Bear Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is
but a
interesting,
lot of-
so how it's split up.
A lot of people don't have iPhones. especially
Right.
The people that would use this bus, they get the Android base because of
Right,
the
and I
cost.
did tell him we needed an Android piece
And I
as
will
well.
tell you that trying to get the app, once it's finished, approved by Apple, is a nightmare. It's easy to get the Android. I've done 2 mobile apps. And
Oh, it won't go through it that way. What
You're
they
gonna-
would do is go to our website and download it directly from our website, and then it'll bring them
So it's
through the
not an
process.
app, it's actually just an internet-based mobile presented internet app.
Yeah,
Presented page.
it'll look like an app, like everybody's app,
It'll
but
look like an
it's-
app you touch,
Right.
but it'll go to their website.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But the
exactly.
real-time thing is important.
so what you're actually doing is remote screening your site
Yes.
on the app.
So what'll happen is that the app will work with our website, but it'll also work with the Geo tab. So the Geo tab is going to be on all our buses. So when we get that all set up, there'll be something on the Geo tab, our iPad that we'll have in there. And then it will be tracking with the Geo tab and allow them to know where they
buses
are.
Great,
So it'll be a twofold piece.
great.
So,
Pretty cool.
yeah, it is pretty neat.
James Bond.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, we have staff reports. Any staff reports from our transit staff?
I don't have any reports, but I did want to invite Cynthia, if Cynthia had any additional reports that she wanted to provide to the council. I will, in future council meetings, provide an item for the operations contractor report, and she might provide some written reports some months, to whatever her desire is. But if you have any updates.
Well, just a quick update on the new service schedule. Everybody seems to be really enjoying the fact that it's more consistent on the red line. The students are real happy about that. And we're hearing a lot of good things from all the passengers. They really seem to like it. You always have a couple people that are a little frustrated at the beginning, but now they see the beauty of it. So I think we're doing good. So we'll see what the rest of the week brings, right? Just a few things. We did have a young lady, or an older lady, get lost. She had dementia, and she got on one of our buses. And our driver took her to the government center where she could catch another bus going to Jackson. She had the fare, the whole 9 yards. The driver left, and then we got a call and found out that this was a dementia client and that they were looking for her. She actually spent an entire evening out. They couldn't find her. The driver got off work and looked for her and couldn't find her the first night. The second day, she was still missing. The driver was very upset over it. She felt that it was somewhat her fault, and it really wasn't. She didn't know. She went out and looked for her and found her. And found her just over here behind the library. and she had water with her, and she called called the ladies that were looking for her, and then called me, and we called the police. Anyways, it was a happy ending. She had fallen. She wasn't very steady on her feet, and fallen in the little creek where there's a bridge and whatnot over there by the library.
And behind the library, yeah.
And honestly, they probably never would have found her as easily if they hadn't had Livier out there really searching for her. So I'll probably like to bring something to you all as an appreciation certificate,
Outstanding service.
and really honor her because she really did go above and beyond. So that's all I have. Yeah. You guys have any questions for me? Or?
Well, we can do a proclamation.
Oh, a proclamation.
Do this proclamation.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you.
And my apologies, Gary, that's Cynthia Lawrence, the transit operations contractor.
With that, item number 8 is adjournment. Our next scheduled meeting of the Calaveras Transit Agency is October 3rd at 6:30 in these chambers. Thank you.